Welcome back to Rewitched, a Charmed 1998 rewatch journey. I'm your host, Jess Sabanko, and I can't wait to share my thoughts on one of my favorite shows with you. Though episodes are now shorter, I will still be keeping them spoiler-free and welcome fans, new and old, to join me on my journey here and on social media at Rewitched_pod on Instagram and TikTok. Currently, I'm on season 5. So this week we're talking about season 5, episode 12, Centennial Charmed. I have decided to split this episode into 2 parts. The first really focusing on the sisters and the overall storyline and structure, and then the second digging a little bit into Cole, how he's gotten to this point throughout the season. He is vanquished in this episode. As someone who's spoiler free, I won't say that he never comes back, but I will give a minor spoiler that this is definitely the end of Cole's storyline in terms of season 5. So I do want to talk about kind of that arc as a whole, my thoughts on it, and what this means for the 100th episode of Charmed. Obviously, with this title, we have the double meaning in the fact that it's Cole's 100th birthday. It's also the 100th episode of the series. For those who might be unaware of older TV structures prior to streaming, getting to 100 episodes was a really big deal in terms of syndication, residuals, all of that type of stuff. So it was a really big moment for a show, and it was something to definitely be like celebrated, and typically 100th episodes do have some type of special thing to them. In this case, I think that there are elements that I do like about it as a 100th episode in terms of the conclusion of what's been a major storyline, but there are also things where like it doesn't quite live up to expectations. In my memory, this episode was a lot better than it actually was when I watched it. There are definitely things that I found enjoyable, such as the return of the seer, but there were other things that I thought could have been done a little better, and I think part of it is just how rushed this storyline is, which again, I'll talk more about in part 2. In terms of our villain and innocence of the episode, once again, Cole takes that villain spot as he has done many times this season, and it is the sisters, specifically Paige, who's the one who once again bears the brunt of his attacks, who is in that innocent position. In terms of what happens in the episode overall, we have Cole accepting a role with the Avatars and deciding to create an alternate reality where Paige had never come to the Charmed ones. They'd never been reconstituted because in his mind, this means that him and Phoebe would all be together. That was the moment that ruined everything for them. I'll talk more about my thoughts on that, again, in Cole's part. In terms of the sisters and their storylines, starting with Piper. Piper has entered her 3rd trimester by this episode, very much getting ready for the process of giving birth. We see early on in the episode her, Leo, Phoebe, and Eve, who's another member of the Romani clan, helping her out to get ready for this birth, doing breathing exercises and talking once again everyone about how it's going to be a home birth, and Piper being like, hospital, like how many fucking times do I have to say it? And everyone just kind of like laughing her off and ignoring her, which again, Piper is the pregnant person. This should be her decision, but no one seems to agree with that. They all just exist as if she's just there, which I think says a lot about society's treatment of women and pregnant people, but I don't have 30 minutes to rant about that, so I'll just say that I don't like that the way Piper is consistently ignored in her feelings about her own pregnancy and birth throughout this season and continuously in this episode. In terms of her in the alternate reality, I really love what they do with Piper's storyline here. It very much brings us back to early season 4, specifically in Hell Hath No Fury, when she's taking out all her anger on demons and hunting and going after them in this way. It really shows that having her sisters and having something help her get through that grieving process and that conversation she has with Paige at the end of the episode was so healing for her, and had that not happened, she likely would have gone through this path of just continuing to live through her grief with anger, chasing after Shax, going after any demon she can to get there. It's really fascinating for her, and I really like that element of the story. It's also really sad to see what happened with her and Leo, but it does again make sense with where she was at the beginning of season 4 in terms of holding a lot of resentment towards him for Prue's death, and I think losing Phoebe too definitely would have. brought Piper down this path. Like, all of that completely adds up to me. It is sad to see that they ended up divorced. It makes sense, once again, that she let go of P3 because, again, it was her bond with Paige that made her say, you know what, the club, P3, it does still exist, right? Even without Prue. But in this alternate reality, absolutely not. The club has gone to hell, as has her life. Even when the demon says to her, go to hell, and she says she's already there, like really putting us in that emotional state. And I really like her attitude throughout this episode. In terms of like her look, I do love the hair and I do love this like darker edge they're trying to give to her in terms of her costuming. I don't like the outfit. I hate the necklace. We've seen Piper in a badass leather outfit literally earlier this season, and I thought that one was a lot better than what they're doing here. It's very much giving like poorly designed demon outfit, but I do get what they're trying to do in terms of a darker Piper, a more like badass Piper. So that part does add up for me. I also like that this Piper, one of her things in getting to know Paige is like, you obviously don't know me at all because I would never give like a home birth. And Paige is like, yeah, you say that like in every reality. Another thing that's really enjoyable in terms of like their connection is just seeing it grow throughout the episode and the way that Paige hints at their dynamic. And I really love the scene where, you know, Piper specifically says like, in your world, like the three of us must be really close, the way that Phoebe and I were with Prue. And it really just show when Piper said a few episodes that like Paige saved this family, Paige saved her. It really is very true from this reality. So I did like getting to see that aspect of it and thought that part was really well written and well structured. Seeing the way that she admires Paige as a witch and what she's capable of, and Paige pointing out that she learned it all from her in terms of her potions and those quizzes and everything that Piper made her do early on. So I thought that that was really beautiful for their connection. In terms of Phoebe's storyline in this episode, so early on, we get the idea that she's very focused on what she has been, being there for Piper in the pregnancy, her work, and just moving on with her life. Paige kind of points out that when she did her little solo potion to try to vanquish Cole, that she was doing it for Phoebe and to give Phoebe peace. And Phoebe's kind of like, I'm good. Like, I'm free of Cole emotionally, like vanquishing him, not vanquishing him. It doesn't make a difference for me right now, which I think is interesting considering where we were at the end of last episode, where it seemed like she very much did want him vanquished. But I get that after all that happened, it might be very like hopeless at this point and something where they have other things going on. And Piper did say that, you know, in this last trimester, they wanted to step away from vanquishes that were unnecessary and focus really on keeping things calm at the end of her pregnancy. So I do get Phoebe supporting that, stepping away from vanquishing Cole and focusing on herself. It does make sense to me. In the alternate reality version, I think that Phoebe is really interesting there, seeing the way that her and Cole interact. I don't necessarily understand how they got to this point, and I think that that's one of the things that this episode really underdevelops for me, is how it got to this point of them hating each other. What I'm thinking happened is that maybe after Prue's death, instead of her going back, that her and Cole maybe did stay in the underworld in this reality, and that's how he ended up as still being like Balthazar, the right-hand man to the source, and she ended up kind of like in her position. I am wondering too why she stayed to help Piper. It's clear that there's still good in Phoebe in the way that she convinces Cole to keep Daryl on as like this guard for them, her personal bodyguard. We see that Cole and Phoebe are both having affairs, which is really strange because I could never see Cole having an affair with everything we've seen over the last 2 seasons. That part just did not add up for me. And how this then would work with the storyline of her getting pregnant, like there's just a lot of stuff in here that's really confusing. And that's another thing with her turning evil that like kind of didn't add up for me, is like, why did she accept this position if she wasn't influenced by a demonic pregnancy? Like there's so much that doesn't add up for me in terms of where Phoebe is at in this episode. However, what is interesting, and that the other characters do point out, specifically Paige, is that no matter what reality we're in, a year after Prue's death, Phoebe does hate Cole. We know that in our reality, his love has morphed into obsession, and it still kind of borders on that here as well, it seems like, though I'm not sure if original Cole's feelings were in the same capacity towards Phoebe, and that's how they grew apart like this. It's obvious that the abuse that we saw in our universe also extended into this, just by the way Phoebe reacts when he comes into the room when she's with that other guy, and she's immediately afraid of him from the moment he starts knocking things over, right? That is going to escalate to something much worse. We see him physically hit her in this episode, in the scene where she tries to protect her sisters when he goes to throw the energy ball at them. And it's obvious that this intimate partner violence has extended through both universes, and in any capacity Cole has done this. I've talked about it before, I'll briefly say it again. If we want to talk about Cole's storyline as like this tragedy of him like being addicted to evil, whatever it is, I don't think that Phoebe needs to forgive him for the way he's treated her. I see a lot of discourse talking about disliking Phoebe in season 5, thinking she's really selfish. And I think there are things in the text to support that. But I also do think that Phoebe is a victim of a toxic relationship that turned abusive. And it's really, really sad to see some very negative reactions to how she may be feeling in terms of this. And it's really beautiful to see her once again choose her sisters, vanquish Cole at the end of the episode there. In terms of Paige's storyline in this episode, I'm really fascinated by it. I think that in terms of her deciding to go after Cole on her own, working on this potion, growing as a witch, which Leo does point out, like, it's a very cool potion, but also at the same time, like, don't practice on me, what the fuck, which I thought was really funny. And then also this idea that, you know, she's really struggling with her identity and being part of this, we have to do everything as a group of 3 all the time. I think that there are aspects of Paige that really like that closeness with her sister, but also that desire to have her own identity that she's always been able to have prior. Like she said, she did spend so many years as an only child, so it does add up for me. I like the aspect of her going into the river, getting this cold, right? And then that being what saves her from Cole's spell. I thought that was pretty clever and well done. I like the way that she is in the other universe. Again, how quick she is to start to realize what's going on, that Cole must have done something to try to get Phoebe back, because again, that's always his only priority. And then going first to Leo, convincing him with the fact that she must be his charge if he can hear her, all of that, not having her powers in that universe, because of course their Paige never met with the sisters to gain her powers, which I think was really well done, really well kind of convinced, though I was questioning a little bit in the scene where Daryl's about to shoot her, if her powers should have come into play the way they did in other episodes in season 4 we saw, where when Paige's life was truly in danger, even before she had powers, she was able to orb in those moments of intensity, though maybe because her fear was different there, because she thought that she might have powers, it didn't work that way. So I can forgive it in that capacity. In terms of her interactions with both sisters, like I said, I really like the way they develop her and alternate reality Piper in this episode. I also like the way we see her going to Phoebe when Piper won't listen to her. And then, of course, seeing that she is, again, hating Cole in this universe, thinking that they can go back to her, which is what they do. Knowing that when Piper's knocked out, the 3 of them can still join hands to regain their ability as the Charmed Ones. The way that her interactions happen with Cole, and he immediately knows she's there and she knows that he'll know what's going on. I think it's all really smart, well put together. One scene that really stands out, of course, is the moment where she gets the potion back from Cole using her power once they've regained them. And Phoebe takes it and she's not sure what Phoebe's gonna do. So she's pressing her. She's like, just throw it, like he's gonna ruin our lives. And then seeing that moment where she does it, right? Phoebe does have that strength, which we've seen multiple times when it comes down to choosing between her sisters and Cole. She does make that right decision. And I thought that that was a really nice, touching scene. We then, of course, have Paige returning to real reality, where after that experience of losing her sister, she's like, I don't want to like move out. Like, no, I would never say that, which is what she brought up earlier when they were at Daryl's party, which, side note, was very cute as well, that they were celebrating Daryl and that we finally got to meet his wife in this episode. Though I did think it was a little strange that Paige is like, oh, like, is that Daryl's wife? She's cute. Like, you haven't met her before? You've been friends with this man for like a year and a half. So that was a strange line from from the episode. But otherwise, I did think it was really cute having that little party for him, and also the way that Paige returns to her sisters at the end and she's like, no, I would never want to move out unless maybe like one day when I'm married or pregnant, or hopefully both at the same time. And then they're kind of like, Paige, you're rambling. And then of course she tells them about what happened with Cole. They go to the penthouse and she's very much convinced that this is the last of him in their lives, though the other sisters are a little less convinced. And then we have that little weird final moment where she says happy birthday to Cole, which is like, you knew it was Cole's birthday, and like, I don't know. That part just was a little strange to me. But overall, I mean, like I said, there are some elements of the structure of this episode where things could have been a little better. I would have liked to have seen some more past characters, maybe Shax himself, maybe Balthazar actually making an appearance, since Cole is still Balthazar in this alternate reality. But yeah, I'm gonna leave off there, and everything else I will save for part 2.